Let's get it on then, shall we? Mwah. Welcome to Sex on the Peach, your weekly hump day dose of everyone's favourite untalked about topic, sex. Let's get honest, let's get open, let's get comfortable, and let's get into this week's show. Hello, babies. Happy Wednesday, happy hump day, and happy Sex on the Peach day. I'm your host, Peach, and I am currently coming to you from sunny Stoke. It is Peach on tour. I am not recording from the usual comfort of my own bedroom. So let's just see how this one goes. But before we start today, I just want to take a second to say thank you to everyone who sent in words of support and love after the last episode, Sex After Trauma. I can't tell you how much it meant to me, especially because it was a difficult episode to record. And also a huge thank you to all of you who have contacted me with your own experiences. First of all, I'm so sorry to anyone out there going through something similar. But I hear you, and I truly appreciate you trusting me. We all know that episode was necessary, but also very heavy. So today I wanted to touch on something a little bit more light-hearted. And so we're going to be talking about one of my favourite topics and my number one event on the sexual menu. And that is oral sex. Obviously, I mention oral sex on the majority of episodes in one way or another. And if you have listened before, you probably know just how high in regard I hold it, because it's literally my favourite thing to be a part of in every respect. So I am excited to have a couple of episodes dedicated to the magic of our mouths, because I realised one just simply wasn't enough. I could probably do about 10 episodes on this subject alone, and I'm sure as this podcast progresses, I will. But for today, we'll be discussing the basics and the not so basics of the different kinds of oral sex. And as always, I'll be answering some of your questions. I'm raring to go, so let's get straight into it today. One of my go-to taglines that I will inevitably be getting put on some merch at some point. This is live by the oral, die by the oral. Pussy edition. Okay, here we fucking go. Let's start from the beginning. What is oral sex? Oral sex involves the stimulation of the genitals using the mouth, the lips, and the tongue. It can be part of foreplay before sexual intercourse, or it can absolutely be the main event of a sexual encounter. Oral sex is a major source of pleasure and intimacy for many people, and it is the most common way to give a vulva owner an orgasm. But as with everything, it is of course important to approach oral sex with respect, consent, and open communication, because there are actually so many hang-ups about oral sex. Because as per usual, we were literally never taught about it, how to give it, and just as importantly, how to receive it, which is a huge, huge part of oral sex. There is a huge lack of accurate information and education surrounding oral sex because, as we know, society carries huge stigma and taboo around discussing and exploring this kind of shit openly. So, where do people learn? From porn, where blowjobs are basically borderline abusive deep throating, and going down on a vulva is straight in with an aggressive tongue moving faster than Usain Bolt and sucking at people's clits like a Dyson. It's a no from me. Yes, obviously personal preferences are completely different. So if that is your thing, then more power to you. But I just think we can make it better than that. So we aren't talking about oral sex. Why? Because we feel shame. We feel embarrassment. We feel fear of judgment. Well, not here and not today. We're getting into it, friends, because I want you all to feel good, giving and receiving all that mouthalicious goodness. As with literally everything we speak about, we gotta cycle through those 3 C's: consent, communication, collaboration. Consent is, as always, your foundation, and it should be freely given, and it should be enthusiastic, and it should be ongoing. When you're dealing with oral sex, checking in with your partner verbally and non-verbally throughout the experience is vital. When you're engaging in oral sex, you don't always have the freedom to vocalize as you usually would. So it's really crucial to learn how to respond to non-verbal cues, because we always got to make sure that both partners are comfortable and enjoying themselves. And a gentle but also not so gentle reminder that consent can be withdrawn at any time, and it's important to respect that. And then communication is key. I want sexual partners to be creating safe spaces where all participants in a sexual encounter can feel heard, respected, and free to express themselves without judgment. You need to have open and honest conversations about your desires, your boundaries, and your expectations. This includes discussing consent, comfort levels, and any concerns or preferences you may have. Once you have enthusiastic consent and open communication in place, you're in the best possible position to create our favorite, ultimate goal, pleasure. And then it's time for us to get into the land of exploration. And listen, every person's preferences and sensitivities are going to differ. So mostly, it's really important to discover what feels good for you and your sexual partner. Feel free to take what you want from today, because I will never tell people explicitly what they should or shouldn't be doing in the bedroom. That's literally impossible, because there's never going to be something that works for absolutely everyone. It's just some guidance, and you can do with it what you will. As someone who is obsessed with oral sex and has put a lot of time into it over the years, a significant portion of my life, I reckon, and also identifying as pansexual, I really be out here giving and receiving oral to and from all of the phenomenal genital situations. So these are really just some thoughts from me, but what is always the most important is allowing yourself the time and the space to experiment with different techniques, different rhythms, pressures, and then paying strong attention to your partner's responses. Staying present and attentive and enthusiastic is everything. We're looking for pussy worship out here, you know what I'm saying. So you really need to approach oral sex with an open mind, curiosity, and a willingness to communicate and collaborate. Explore those desires and boundaries. Remember, everyone is different. Be patient, respectful, and focus on pleasure and connection between you and your sexual partner or partners. Even though one person may be performing, we hate that word, so I'll say giving, but performing an act on a partner, oral sex should absolutely still be a place of mutual enjoyment. Because when both people are enjoying the experience, we are more likely to be in a place of pleasure and reach orgasm. Before I get further into it, we got to touch on health. And this is something I'm going to mention on both episodes of this topic. because the least listened to episode of Sex on the Beach, by quite a far stretch, is the episode in season 1 about STIs, because I guess people just do not want to talk or hear about it. But it's important. I get tested every 3 months because I take my sexual health very, very seriously, and I want to encourage you all to take it seriously as well. The safer, more consensual, more communicative the sex we're all having, the better it's going to be. The risk of contracting an STI through oral sex is much lower than vaginal and anal sex. However, it is possible. So take precautions because I want to promote safe sex here. I'll keep it concise because I can tell that people don't like this part. Talk to your partner about each other's sexual health history and STI status before engaging in oral sex. Be aware of the potential risks. The STIs you can transmit through oral sex include HPV, which can cause genital warts, hepatitis A, B, and C, oral and genital herpes, gonorrhea, chlamydia, syphilis, and HIV. These STIs can be asymptomatic, but possible symptoms include a sore throat and sores in or around the mouth or throat. If you believe there to be any risk, for maximum STI prevention, use a condom during fellatio and a dental dam during cunnilingus and analingus. And lastly, the risk of STI transmission is typically higher for those giving oral sex than those receiving it. So this is quite specific. But to decrease the risk while giving oral sex, avoid brushing your teeth or using dental floss right beforehand, because bleeding gums can increase exposure to any viruses. Okay, that's it. Boring bits over, and we can get to the fun stuff. But please, do take care of your sexual health always. Let's fucking go! There are really 3 kinds of oral sex. And these are, in proper terms, cunnilingus, which we'll be focusing on today, and then fellatio and analingus, which we are going to cover in more detail on the next episode. Cunnilingus is the act of oral sex on a vulva or vagina. Y'all know it's referred to as eating or licking out. Absolutely not my fave, but what are you going to do? Anyway, I digress. Cunnilingus involves a partner focusing on stimulating their partner's vulva and vagina. But the primary source is that magic erogenous zone, the clitoris. Get those 8,000 nerve endings, babies. Next up, we have fellatio, which you will inevitably be more familiar with as being called a blowjob. Like, literally, I don't think in a sexual setting anyone has ever used the words cunnilingus or fellatio, but there we go. Not to me, anyway. Fellatio involves stimulating your partner's penis with your mouth. But while we're on the topic of blowjobs, even though I'm 99.9999999% sure you all already know, they do not actually involve blowing on the penis. You really just want to be licking and sucking that thing. I've tried to research why it's called a blowjob, and I actually still can't really give you a clear answer. So if anyone has the answer to this, please hit me up. And then, last but not least, we have analingus. You'll more likely hear this called rimming or a rim job. And this is the act of orally stimulating a partner's anus. You all know me well enough by now to know that I'm not your guru when it comes to anything anal related. However, my friends, your assholes have a lot of nerve endings. So, licking and kissing your partner's asshole can stimulate the sensitive nerve endings in and around their anus. Rimming can be a very pleasurable sexual activity for people of all genders and sexual orientations. But it will take some communication and navigation because it can still feel nerve-wracking for a lot of people. But Over the next couple of episodes, we're about to get into all of these in way more detail. But for today, yay, here we go. Let's talk about going down on a vulva. Now, let's get real. We'd all love for every partner to be an expert at cunnilingus or licking pussy, but that is simply not our reality. We have to remember we weren't taught this shit, and one vagina to the next is about as similar as a fingerprint. Yes, it's good that that's not how the FBI distinguish us, but it really be true. Every vulva is different. The smell, the look, the taste, they are all going to be completely different. And if you get used to one partner and then move on, it may not be what you expect. But that is completely normal. Literally, no two are the same. And people aren't mind readers. So we have to have a little understanding and patience, because what works for one person may not work for the next. But there are some things to absolutely think about when you are going down on a vulva. And it's so important because, as I already said, this is one of the main ways you will be most likely to give a vulva owner partner an orgasm. And when done in a way that works for your partner, oral sex gives all the parts of the vulva the attention it deserves. And people get very defensive and let their ego get in the way when it comes to oral sex because it's seen as a performative act. So people take it as an insult if what they do isn't working for a partner. But throw that ego out of the window. This isn't a you problem unless you make it one. Like if you ignore your partner's desires for the sake of your pride and ego and you're giving them a bad time of going down, it can and probably will cause your sexual chemistry to fizzle out a little. And then it becomes a you problem. But if you are being an attentive and considerate sexual partner, you will listen and take on board what your partner needs. And everything is going to be so much better for all of you. And I have faith that with a bit of work, y'all can become cunnilingus connoisseurs. So, before you let your mouth do the talking, here are some tips to help you get your head in the game of giving head. For a start, it is very disconcerting the number of people, and when I say people, I'm unfortunately looking at you, penis owners. I don't blame you, you weren't taught, but it is what it is, and actually there comes a point where there's no excuse, so please get it together a little bit. Who don't know where the clitoris is, and they cannot point it out on a diagram. Now, if you're traveling to a new place or a new country, or if you're my best friend Zoe and you're trying to find your way out of Bank Station in London, you'd probably use a map or a GPS, right? Well, it's time for you to look at oral sex the same way. Take the time to learn what you're getting into. I really mean that. Study the vulva, study the vagina, look at diagrams and learn where shit is. The more things you learn, the more aware you are of where everything is and the more likely you are to wow your partner and give them a good time. Learn about labias. Pay attention to the cheeky little erogenous zones like the mons pubis, and if you're thinking, the what? You're proving my point. It's the gateway to the labia, babes. Look it up. And even if you're one of the minority, yes, the minority who knows where the clitoris is, spend some time brushing up on its complexities because that baby's sole purpose is pleasure and deserves to have that time put into it because it's actually the only part of a human body whose sole purpose is pleasure. And You don't really want to be spending time in an area that has 8,000 to 10,000 nerve endings and not stimulating a single one of them. A general rule from me for all sexual activities is to start slow and gradually increase the sensation and the pace so that your partner has time to build up their arousal. Going straight in for the kill just simply never really does it for me. Start with slow and sensual licking. Yes, the clit is going to be your main source of pleasure, but tease your partner, build suspense by lightly circling your tongue around the entire vulva area. Get creative. Can you roll your R's? Cool. Try doing that down there, because if you can get a buzzing sensation going on, that's the closest to a vibrator your mouth is ever going to be. Even try a bit of dirty talk when you're down there. And if it works, keep on going. And yes, it's important to use your tongue, obviously, but don't just lick the vulva like a lollipop or an ice cream cone. You can use your lips too and experiment a bit. And yes, you can suck a bit too, but please be gentle. The clitoris is not a straw. And I use that example with a personal story attached, because if you haven't listened already, feel free to circle back to Buzzing Literally in season 1, in which I revealed the story where a sexual partner treated my vagine as if he was trying to get a McDonald's milkshake up a straw, and I ended up with a bruised clit. So, do not do that, friends. Ever. Ever. And even if you're being gentle, some vulva owners like it, but others don't. So only continue if your sexual partner responds favorably. And that is a key factor when it comes to oral sex. Tune into your partner's body language. If your partner isn't showing any signs of pleasure, it's time to switch it up, baby. Whether that's a variation in tongue pressure, pace, or location. However, if you're getting a lot of heavy breathing, arching their back, hip tilting closer to your mouth, you're probably on the right track. So keep doing whatever it is you're doing. Unless anyone is faking, but we don't be doing that around here, right? Please. Some people may be very direct in their communication. That's me. I'm people. And tell you exactly what they like or don't like as you go. And if you're trying things out and you find that your partner isn't really making any kind of sound or giving much physical movement, maybe something just isn't going right. And if that's the case, don't be afraid to ask questions, because easier than reading your partner's body language is listening to their own words. Let your partner know that you are open to feedback, whether that's before, during, or after. Asking your partner about the pressure and speed whilst you're down there is a great way to really focus on their pleasure. And it's hot. You can also ask them how they like to be touched, or even ask them to touch themselves first. And then you can watch and try to replicate what they did with your mouth. It might feel daunting if that isn't a usual part of your sexual practice, but I promise it is the easiest way to figure out exactly what they like. And also, there is nothing worse than someone going down on you and seeming less than interested. Like, that would make it hard for any partner to stay in the mood. We all know that confidence is attractive, and the more informed you feel about what you're doing, the more confident you are going to feel. Telling your partner how much you want to please them, making eye contact, letting them know how much you enjoy what you're doing, anything you can do to show them that your face is right where you want it to be, it's a vibe. And they'll be able to vibe off that energy, which will help put them in a relaxed mindset and keep them focused on pleasure and climax. Because I cannot tell you how many vulva owners start to stress if they feel like their oral pleasure is taking too long. But listen, The average vulva owner takes 40 minutes to orgasm through oral sex. So buckle up, settle in, and enjoy the ride. And also, just because it's called oral sex doesn't mean you can't also let your fingers or a sex toy do some of the work. You won't be able to stimulate the G-spot with your tongue whilst you're stimulating the clit. So, to enhance things, insert your fingers or a sex toy into your partner's vagina whilst simultaneously licking them. This will allow you to stroke the G-spot and lick the clit at the same time for a blended pleasure experience, which makes orgasms way more explosive. And listen, potentially even a dual orgasm, which are obviously a gift sent from God, and I'm not even religious. To massage your partner's G-spot, gently insert one or more fingers or a small toy about 2 inches inside the vagina and move your fingers towards you as though you're making a come here motion. I don't know a better way to describe it than that, but for most people, it's going to feel good. But as with everything, not everyone is going to enjoy fingering during cunnilingus. So obviously ask before just going for it. Thank you and good night. However, if your partner does like it, although you shouldn't stop using your mouth completely, using your hands or a toy as helpers will keep your tongue from cramping, because listen, it happens, and give you a breather, especially if you are going for a 40-minute session or longer. But listen, direct and consistent clitoral stimulation is the key to making your partner orgasm. And once your partner is approaching orgasm, keep doing what you are doing. If they signal that they are close to climaxing, either verbally or through body language, don't switch up your technique. Last year, I had a sexual encounter where I was convinced a sexual partner was playing around with edging because every time I was close, they were changing things up. They weren't. So keep targeting the same spot until your partner orgasms or tells you otherwise. Thank you. And even if you're already captain cunnilingus, there are always more techniques to learn, things to explore, positions to try, and ways to enhance your oral sex skills. So try new things and experiment to find what works. Flip your partner around on all fours if they're normally on their back and go down on them from behind. Have them sit on your face. Give it some 69 action. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I could literally live in a 69. It gets a little stressful when it's getting close to climax time, but giving and receiving oral at the same time is honestly the stuff dreams are made of, in my opinion. Anyway, so many options. And we have to take a moment to talk about the Kivin method, which apparently is giving orgasms within 5 to 10 minutes for any vulva owner. A bold statement, in my opinion, and also it's important for me to say at this moment that not everything has to be about orgasm. It just has to be about pleasure. So we don't need to be putting timestamps on things. However, anything that increases the intensity of pleasure and orgasms is a thumbs up from me. Even if you are in an outstanding oral sex routine, in my opinion, it's always good to continue experimenting and being receptive to experiencing pleasure in different ways. However, if you're the partner who is going to be giving the oral sex, let your partner know you'd like to try something new. Ask if they are comfortable and ask for verbal feedback during and after. So, this method has some things to master that differ from the more traditional cunnilingus style, primarily positioning and direction. When it comes to positioning, usually a giver would be facing towards their partner between their legs. But the Kivin method takes things a little more sideways, with the partner laying at a 90-degree angle perpendicular to their partner. So instead of looking upwards at the clit, you're looking at it sideways, kind of like a capital T with your bodies. Also, most vulva owners have one side of their clit that is more sensitive than the other. So it's actually a really good idea to try both sides and see what works better for them. And you can also play around with where works best for your partner's legs, whether that's pulled slightly back or keeping their legs down and closed together. So it's something for you to experiment with. Next up, you want to get your hands involved. And once again, you'll want to check in with your partner to see what feels best for them because you may need to adjust accordingly. But take your index finger and your thumb and place them either side of the clitoris in order to keep it in place whilst you use your tongue. So once you've got all that going on in a way that feels good for your partner, get licking, honeys. Now, with this position, you're licking horizontally across the clit rather than the usual vertical action that people favour. But do try different variants with your tongue to find out exactly what your partner likes before you get into a rhythm. The key with this method is to figure out what works and then stay consistent. Once you're onto a good thing, stay with it. The suggestion for your other hand with the Kivin method is to place gentle pressure on the perineum. However, some people find pressure on that uncomfortable, so continue to communicate what feels good or doesn't. And if you'd prefer, you can always insert a finger into the vagina or even give a gentle massage of the exterior or interior of the anus. Either of these should give you similar feedback, so explore what works best for you and pay attention to both verbal and physical feedback. Now listen, I'm not entirely sure that this is a new technique. In fact, I think I've been trialing sideways oral sex for the majority of my sexually active years, and it's definitely great. But I guess we have a name for it now, so that's cute. And I hadn't realised how many people hadn't ever tried it. So I felt it important to talk about today because obviously it's fun to explore new things in your sex life. And so if someone out there hasn't tried it and this podcast leads you to a pleasure session and even an orgasm, you can send me a check in the mail. Okay. I'm going to move on to some questions, and I've split the questions I was sent between this and next week's episodes. So if you have sent in a question and you don't hear it today, it will absolutely be answered next time and was just more tailored towards next week's content. Also, with this topic, I received a lot of very similar questions. So I've condensed them down to be answered in one section, and we'll just use a couple of them as guidance of what the answer will be about. But let's just go with it and get into them. Question number 1. So 2 questions that were sent for this one were, if someone isn't quite hitting the spot while they're down there, any top tips to help them out? And are there ways to direct someone for it to feel better? Not sure where to start. Okay, when it comes to guiding your partner to hit the spot during oral sex, effective communication is key. I mean, listen, I'm direct as hell. When the McDonald's milkshake story happened, I did tell them to never do that to another vulva owner again, ever. But realistically, this kind of communication needs to be taken care of in a sensitive but confident manner, because you deserve to receive what you actually enjoy. It seems daunting, but I promise it is so much easier than it seems, and it's only going to improve your sex life so much. Start by communicating what feels good to you as a way of positive reinforcement, and within that, provide clear instructions on what you enjoy. Use encouraging language to guide your partner, such as, I love it when you, or could you try? Be as specific as you need in your feedback, because it's only going to aid them in giving you pleasure, which should hopefully be the goal for both of you. It sounds a bit harsh when I say this, and I don't mean it to be so, but if you don't say anything to your partner and you aren't really enjoying it, it's really just a waste of time for both of you. So communicating may feel a little uncomfortable as you get into the habit of doing it, but it's definitely less uncomfortable than the hours you may end up wasting laying there and not enjoying what you're receiving. So try to prioritize it as a way to positively enhance your sex life for the both of you. If being verbal feels a bit too much to start with, whilst you build up your confidence, you can also use non-verbal cues to guide your partner. Gently guide their head or hips to adjust the angle or pressure. Moans, gasps, or subtle body movements can also indicate what feels pleasurable to you. Sometimes actions speak louder than words. If it's comfortable for you, you can use your own hands to guide your partner's head or provide more direct stimulation and to show them the pace, rhythm, and intensity that you prefer. You can also demonstrate the techniques you enjoy by touching yourself while your partner observes. And when your partner does do something that feels good or they hit the right spot, provide that positive reinforcement. Vocalize your pleasure. Give compliments. Use encouraging phrases to let them know they're on the right track. Express your appreciation and let them know they are doing something that brings you pleasure to encourage them to continue. Again, this also helps them understand what works well for you. Also, communication is a two-way street, and open and honest communication will create a mutually pleasurable experience. So don't be afraid to ask your partner for feedback as well. Ask them what they enjoy or if they have any specific preferences, because this opens up the door for you to explore together, as everyone's preferences and sensitivities are going to vary. So it's important to explore and discover what works for the two of you. Encourage your partner to explore your body with curiosity and attentiveness. Experiment with different techniques, speeds, pressures, and variations, and you'll find out what excites you most. Provide feedback along the way to guide their efforts. Another option is provide guidance in advance. If you have specific techniques or preferences that you know you enjoy, discuss them with your partner before engaging in oral sex. Share your desires and give them an idea of what you find pleasurable. It's only going to help set the stage for a more satisfying experience. If you're relatively new to starting to communicate your way through oral sex or any sexual experience, be patient and understanding with your partner, because it will be a new experience for them as well to receive that communication. But this starts a path for you both to create a safe and non-judgmental space for open communication. If you keep expressing your needs and desires, you can guide your partner in a way that enhances your pleasure and strengthens your sexual connection, and also ask them to do the same for you when you give them oral sex. I hope that helps both of you, but do feel free to follow up if you want to. I'm concerned about smelling or tasting funky the week before my period. Vagina owner here. Any tips? And also, love oral sex, but conscious of my hygiene. Okay, listen. When it comes to changes in any genital odor or taste, it's important to remember that everyone's body is unique, and variations can occur just throughout life, let alone the menstrual cycle. And I promise you, it's not uncommon for people to notice differences in scent or taste in the days leading up to their period. I'm very in touch with my own body and always know what's up. And I feel like sometimes if I'm due a period, I can taste a little more metallic or sharp, I guess, which is completely fine. And I'm never going to worry about that because I'm a hygienic person and our bodies are going to do what they're going to do. And I mean, regardless of time or cycle, Maintaining good hygiene is essential for genital health, but don't get over the top because you can really fuck yourself over, especially your pH if you're a vulva owner. So avoid using any harsh soaps or douching, as these can disrupt that natural pH balance and potentially worsen any odor or taste concerns. Just wash the external genital area gently with warm water, and if you must, something that is incredibly mild or unscented. One thing that I'm very bad at, stay hydrated. Yes, we all know that drinking plenty of water can help maintain overall bodily health, but this includes genital health too, and staying hydrated can contribute to healthy genital secretions. Again, I'm an absolute terror for a 1 pound Primani lace thong, and God knows what they are made of. But I read all the time that the material of your underwear is like super important. And we should be wearing breathable underwear like cotton or a similar fabric because it allows air circulation and helps prevent excess moisture and potential odor buildup. So really, I should be throwing those lace thongs out, I'm aware. Similar to staying hydrated, our diet can actually have an effect on bodily scent or taste. I know people joke about pineapple, but I have definitely noticed that pineapple or pineapple juice makes semen taste sweeter. And even though this is an area where research is a little limited, keeping a balanced diet with plenty of fruit, vegetables, and water is generally beneficial, not just for overall health, but it translates to our genitals whether we like it or not. However, one of my biggest tips, if you are ever feeling insecure about smell or taste, no matter whether you're a penis or vulva owner, lube. It literally takes all the pressure off. Sure, your mouth is wet, but flavored lube sorts out all of your taste concerns. And it also keeps everything nice and slippery, which really just enhances the experience. You can literally get any flavor these days, from fruity like strawberry or even peach, to literal dessert flavors like creme brulee or hazelnut. Never has time for dessert been more accurate, because you can literally turn your partner into one. So think about some flavors that you and your partner might like and try them on each other, and just introduce it into your sexual practice for those times that you are feeling a little insecure. Obviously, I do need to say it for the safety side of things. If anyone does have any persistent concerns about changes in odor or taste that are accompanied by any other symptoms such as itching or discomfort or unusual discharge, please do consult with a healthcare professional. They can provide a proper evaluation, offer guidance, and address any underlying issues. And it's important. Don't just ignore it and let these things get in the way of your pleasure. Everyone's body is unique, from size to shape to color to features. And there is also a natural variation in genital odor and taste, which we all need to be more aware and accepting of in general. And embracing and understanding these natural changes can help alleviate those unnecessary concerns, and it just helps promote self-acceptance and helps us all get so much more comfortable with ourselves, which always just provides a more pleasure-likely experience. Next question. Not really a question, but I always get so super self-conscious when receiving oral that I struggle to enjoy it. Any tips and advice to help let go? For a start, don't worry. Don't feel alone, because feeling self-conscious during oral sex is so common. Firstly, remember that you deserve pleasure and enjoyment just as much as your partner. I've mentioned already it's so common for people to feel stressed because they worry about their partner or feel like they might be taking too long. But no, if your partner is down there and enjoying themselves, just allow yourself to be present in your pleasure because this is your time, baby. However, if you feel comfortable to do so, talk openly with your sexual partners about any feelings of self-consciousness. Let them know that you struggle to fully relax and enjoy oral sex. Sharing your concerns is only going to help create a supportive environment, which is a more pleasure-inducing environment. Embrace your body and your sexuality and sensuality within your body. And remember and remind yourself that your partner is interested in pleasuring you because they desire you and they find you attractive. Celebrate that. Celebrate your uniqueness and focus on the sensations and pleasure you are experiencing rather than getting caught up in any negative self-judgments, whatever they are, or moments of self-consciousness because they're not worth it and you're only denying yourself pleasure. And I mean, my favorite thing is to advise people to really concentrate on the present experience rather than worrying about how you look or what your partner might be thinking. If you really engage your senses and pay attention to the physical sensations, then you allow yourself to be fully present in the moment, which leaves you more open to receiving pleasure from the experience. But if you feel self-conscious about oral sex, then that isn't something that's just going to go overnight. So if you know that you are going to engage in any oral sex with a partner, take a moment beforehand to replace any doubt with positive self-talk. Remind yourself of your worth, desirability, and the right to experience pleasure. I deserve pleasure, or I am beautiful and worthy of enjoyment, or I am fucking sexy. These can help shift your mindset and build confidence so that you then feel better when you are in the moment. If affirmations aren't really your thing, instead of that, prior to engaging in oral sex, try relaxation techniques such as deep breathing or mindfulness exercises, as this will help calm your mind, reduce anxiety, and just promote a more relaxed state. And the more relaxed we are, the more pleasure we get. We don't use mindfulness enough, in my opinion, when it comes to sex, and it's something I'm actively trying to encourage. But it can be helpful if there are certain acts you feel uncomfortable about. And then when you are in the moment, experiment with different positions. If certain positions or angles make you feel more self-conscious, explore different ones that allow you to feel more comfortable and at ease. We're sort of taught that there's one position, but fuck that. Find whatever feels best for you and go with it. If it gives you pleasure, that's all that matters. So it's absolutely fine if what works for you for oral sex deviates from the norm. In the same way we have positions we feel more or less comfortable or confident in when we're having penetrative sex, the same goes for oral. And it's a process to find out what really feels good for you, as is overcoming self-consciousness when it comes to this stuff. And it may well take a little time. So be patient with yourself and communicate openly with your partner or partners if you feel you can. And just keep trying little different things until you find what works best. Because sex is just like anything else. It takes work and it takes practice. And honestly, with practice and some good self-acceptance in the respect of always reminding yourself that you deserve pleasure and hopefully supportive sexual partners, you will absolutely gradually let go of this self-consciousness and fully embrace the pleasure of oral sex. And I am here to hear about it when you do. I'm rooting for you. Last question for today. I love giving and receiving oral. My partner hates giving it, but loves receiving it. I'm starting to find this really frustrating as it feels like I'm missing out. Any suggestions? Listen, oral sex can hold a lot of weight in a relationship. I mean, on a personal level, I cannot tell you how much I would struggle with that. You haven't specified gender identity in the question, so I don't know where you and your partner sit within that. But for vulva owners, lack of oral sex is literally one less path to orgasm. Oral is such a huge part of my pleasure practice that for me, it would actually be a deal breaker. And it is okay for sexual differences to be deal breakers, even though no one ever tells us that. But pleasure and sex are important. So anyway, this definitely isn't me saying dump them yet. No, I jest. But actually, this is something that will need to be navigated. And navigating differences in sexual preferences and desires can be really challenging in any relationship. And my first question is why? Why do they hate it? I know we all have our tastes, and so it sadly may not be theirs, but I would be very interested in the reason for it, whether it be an unpleasant past experience or something like that. So I guess, to start, try to have a calm and non-judgmental conversation with your partner about your desires and frustrations. Tell them how much you enjoy giving and receiving oral sex and how it feels like there's an imbalance in your sexual experiences. Try to have this conversation sooner than later so as not to let resentment build up. If oral is really important to you, that is absolutely fine. But it's really important to encourage your partner to share their perspective as well, because there also isn't anything wrong with someone who doesn't want to give it, but a conversation will allow you to get to the bottom of where this imbalance is coming from. Because I know I would find it really challenging to continue giving oral sex to someone who wasn't interested in reciprocating at all. Also, be open to alternatives. Explore ways to find a compromise or alternative activities that can still provide pleasure for both of you. It's, of course, always important to respect each other's boundaries and preferences and to try to understand. If your partner is genuinely uncomfortable with giving oral sex, forcing or pressuring them is never going to be the solution, nor should it be. So try to understand their perspective, and you can always find alternative ways to explore pleasure that both of you are comfortable with, because mutual respect and consent should always be the foundation of your sexual activity anyway. And obviously, sexual intimacy is not solely reliant on oral sex. So for now, you could consider exploring those other forms of intimacy and pleasure that you both enjoy. That could include manual stimulation, different positions, using sex toys, focusing on other erogenous zones. And it's something you can mutually discover with each other. And finding new ways to connect and experience pleasure together can help create a more fulfilling and balanced sexual relationship. That may even in turn encourage your partner to be more open to engaging in oral sex if they feel like your sex life is moving forward in an open and explorative manner. But also, I know I couldn't live without oral, so no judgment. If this issue persists and becomes a significant source of distress in your relationship, I'd be seeking the guidance of a sex therapist. And that's probably going to sound extreme, but if I loved someone to the ends of the earth and back, but they weren't into oral, I'd have a really tough time of it. And it's important to be honest, so I am being. Not everyone will feel that way. I'm just one person, but that is my truth. It is a huge source of pleasure for people, and if it does become a weight on your relationship, a therapist can provide a safe space for you both to express your needs and concerns and offer guidance in how to navigate those differences in a healthy and constructive manner. Yes, every relationship is unique, and Compromise and understanding are crucial when it comes to sexual compatibility. But compatibility is important. And if we value sex highly in our relationships, it's okay to prioritize our wants and desires. But whatever ends up happening with this situation, it's going to be essential to create an environment where you both feel heard, valued, and respected. Because that way, you can hopefully work towards finding a solution that brings mutual satisfaction and enhances your overall sexual connection. But eventually, it will be up to you and your partner to decide if your sexual connection is satisfying as a whole. And if it turns out that this is something you need and can't get past, don't feel guilty about it. You're allowed to have those desires and you deserve them. Obviously, I hope it doesn't come to that, and I really hope you can find a solution. I'm just sick of people being made to feel bad for prioritizing sex and pleasure. So whatever the outcome is, I got you. Whew, okay. So that's Pussy Edition down. I mean, even splitting it into two was questionable for me because I could have my own season about oral sex. But I hope that today was helpful in one way or another. And I am excited to continue with all things penis and anus on the next episode of Live by the Oral, Die by the Oral. So if you have any specific blowjob or rimming questions that you want answered, please do send them over for next week's episode. Sending you all lots of love and mouth magic for the next week. But for now, thanks for coming. Thank you for tuning in to Sex on the Peach today, and I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. You can find and follow me on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Sex on the Peach Cast, and you can also get in touch with me at sexonthepeachcast@gmail.com. Please do continue to like, share, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts, and I'll see you next week. Love, Peach.